just as it's starting. There we go. Hey everyone, I'm here with Michael Bailey of Michael Bailey Law and Mobile Estate Planning. How's it going today, Michael?
Oh, I'm good. How are you, Heath?
Good. We'll wait a few minutes just for people to get in, and we'll have a conversation.
Sounds good to me.
Oh, man, it's like 10 degrees in Colorado today.
Oh, it's nice and warm.
It's not very warm. We don't get days like this too often.
We get some, though, and at least it stopped snowing so that we can now see the streets again and drive safely.
Yeah, that is nice. We don't have much snow plows in Colorado.
Well, we got plenty of snow plows. They just don't hit the side streets as often. But in my case, where my oldest daughter is learning to drive, it's kind of nice to have a snowstorm so she can learn how it is to drive in the snowstorm itself.
That can be beneficial.
Yeah, learn to drive, and okay, so it's a little bit slippery or whatever it is, it just kind of helps. So for our own personal reasons, helping our daughter learn how to drive on the snow is a good thing.
Right. Nice. Want to make sure that our battery's going to work too. I think it will. All right.
Cool.
I think we'll get started.
That's good.
All right. So this is kind of our first time with Speak with Estate Planner, actually getting to speak with an estate planner. So we're really happy to be here. And first, Michael, I wonder if you could just share what kind of attorney you are and what makes your law firm unique.
So, I don't hold any special designations. I am an estate planning attorney because that's what I focus on. I haven't gone through, there's some groups out there that they will, you're a certified elder law attorney or a certified estate planning attorney. I haven't done that. I've just focused my practice on estate planning, so that's what I do. And I set up my practice, I call my business Mobile Estate Planning, because I go visit people where they are. I have offices all across the Denver metro area, even along the Front Range. So I make house calls and go visit people where they are because it's a lot more fun than sitting in an office and hoping that somebody comes to find me.
Right, nice. And for the elderly or people that can't drive, or maybe they don't want to drive when it's snowy out.
Right.
That is a really nice added benefit that you offer.
Yep. I actually had that on Wednesday. When it was snowing on Wednesday, we had multiple people who wanted to cancel, and one of them we've been chasing for 9 months to find a day. They're like, oh, we can't do it now. I'm like, tell you what, just come to my office, and I will come to you, and we can get it signed so we can get it taken care of.
Nice. Yeah. As an estate planner, people aren't always in a real rush to get things like this done. So being able to actually go and visit them, that definitely helps.
Right. It just makes it more convenient for them. And I know it doesn't work for everybody, but for me, the convenience of me going to see them helps.
Nice, yeah. And it's nice that they were open to letting you do that too.
It was.
Yeah.
Not everybody wants me to come to their house, whether it's dirty or the people I went to visit, they're like, oh, I'm so sorry, our house is, we're painting the walls, so they had all their stuff in the middle of the room, and I'm like, all right, I don't care, it doesn't hurt my feelings any, but sometimes people don't want you to come by the house for whatever reason. I'm okay with that too. We can meet in the office.
And it's kind of part of the daily grind of an estate planner too.
Part of the deal. Yep.
Yeah. So, very cool. So this next question, you kind of already answered it, but how do you like to work with people?
Just however is most convenient for them. So meeting-wise, meet at the office, meet at their house, whatever works. As far as working with them, I have lots of people who will call and they're like, oh, well, we need to talk about this, and how much does it cost? And it's really hard for me to tell you a cost until I know more about your situation. So I will meet with people and do an initial consultation where I ask questions of them to try to figure out what their situation is so that I can make appropriate and proper recommendations. It's hard for me to say. I have some friends who are like, oh, everybody needs a trust. And I have some friends who are like, nope, nobody needs a trust. Well, really it depends on what you need and what your situation is. And until I know what your situation is, I can't give you good legal advice and I can't help you properly. And I also don't think you should pay for telling me what your situation is, so I do the initial consultation for free.
Nice, nice. So for the most part, face to face, but you do some Zoom as well.
I do, yeah. Over the pandemic, I begrudgingly embraced that technology. Zoom, I figured out how to click the start Zoom meeting button. I'm like, woohoo, I can do this. And then we can have a conversation. I'm holding on to, I'm not going to pay for the paid subscription just because I don't do it often enough via Zoom.
Right. So for the most part, you're actually really face to face.
Yep.
Nice.
I prefer face-to-face meetings, especially for something as important as your estate plan and who's going to be in charge of helping leave stuff to your children, or what happens after you die.
So
always nice to look somebody in the eye and possibly shake their hand.
Maybe a side question, but do you find that when you're trying to get that relationship established with the new client, that face-to-face is helpful as compared to doing it through Zoom or maybe over the phone?
I think it's much more helpful to try to do things in person. I always prefer an in-person meeting. I will do Zoom with people who are freaked out about the virus and stuff like that. I'm like, fine, we can do Zoom. Over the phone, I've found over my years of doing it that I'm happy to talk to people on the phone, but sometimes if I'm trying to do a first meeting, you do everything, and then as soon as you hang up, there should be like 10 questions that flood your mind. You're like, oh, I'll call him right back. Except for I've already moved on to my next appointment, so you miss some things.
Right. So that's really good. A lot of our attorneys in the group, they're early on. They're all different years that they've been an estate planner. So they're always trying to improve their process, and hearing the process that you've had, I'm sure people appreciate, and that is really helpful.
Possibly. There are probably people who are much better at doing phone meetings or Zoom meetings than I am. I just like doing the in-person. I like the personal touch. Plus, I like being able to meet people and sit down and talk to them. And as an extra added bonus, when I go to their house, if they have a puppy dog or a kitty cat, I get to meet the puppy dog or the kitty cat.
Nice. Very nice. We love our dogs here in Colorado.
Yes.
Cool.
I have my 2 puppy dogs, and anytime I've met another dog, they'll come and they'll sniff me and they're like, "You dog cheated me." I'm like, no, I just pet another dog. It's okay. You're still my dog, I promise.
Nice. Cool. So tell us kind of how your 2021 is going so far. How did it start?
It has started off super well. 2020 became an incredibly busy year.
2022, I guess.
Yes.
2022. How's this year going? I wrote 2021, but
2021 became an incredibly busy year.
Yeah.
Normally in November, December, around the holidays and Thanksgiving and Christmas, things will drop off. So I'll have about half the business that I normally did. This last year, November, December were incredibly busy. And that carried over into January of 2022. So I actually had about double the revenue come in January of 2022 than I've had in any other month. So starting off with a bang, and we'll see if we end with a whimper or continuing on with said bang.
Oh, well, we're so appreciative that you're taking the time to meet with us and to talk to the group. So we know you're busy, so we really appreciate it. So thank you again.
But it's important to, and you can be busy, but if you get too busy doing law stuff and forget to market your firm, you'll find yourself really not busy later on.
Right.
You have to find the right mix between, okay, I'm going to help these clients, I'm going to do this for the client, and I need to find new clients to bring them in.
Yeah, making sure that your marketing stays consistent. You don't just stop it because you got a full calendar.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes you have a full calendar, and that happened to me in December because I took a couple of days off between Christmas and New Year's. You'd be like, can we meet with you next week? No, that's not available. Well, how about 2? I was scheduling 4 and 5 weeks out. And I had a couple of people who were like, we need to get it done sooner than that. You can't help us. I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't.
It is what it is.
I can't just be like, hey, you person who's been waiting for 3 weeks, I'm going to kick you off the calendar for somebody else. That doesn't work. And it was a good problem to have.
Great problem.
I'm scheduling 3 or 4 weeks out, but
right. So
it's just kind of realistic.
Going to this next question. So how are you so good at getting clients to meet with you? you have an initial phone call or initial time that they reach out. How are you so good at getting them to actually meet with you in person?
Really, I just explain why we need to do that. People are like, oh, well, I've got 2 kids, I've got a house, an IRA, and so I'm pretty simple. So what do I need? And I say, you told me 2 sentences of what needs to be a 5-paragraph story. So I need to understand your 5-paragraph story to be able to do this. And then I'll say that's why I offer the free initial consultation, so that we can sit down and we can talk about what you have and what you need and what will work for you, and I can give you your options, and then you can choose for yourself. So basically I'm saying, I don't want to try to answer a question on incomplete information, so I would much rather meet with you and we can talk about it. And then when I tell them it's a free consultation, most people are like, okay, that's great, because then I have an hour of their time, half an hour to an hour of their time, where I can help them understand and see the value of working with me. And it's not just a 5-minute phone call where I'm like, oh, I'm trying to convert you to be my client in 5 minutes. No, that's not going to happen.
Right.
So the 5 minutes is, hey, let me meet with you for long enough so that we can, and if I'm trying to convert you to a client, it's so that I can help you get your estate plan done, not because, some nefarious reason. It's, let me, I feel a little bit like I'm in the movie Jerry Maguire. I was like, help me help you.
Nice, yes. Show me the money.
No. It's help me help you, not show me the money. I mean, it's not all about money. Right. I've always believed that if you do work for clients and you do the right thing for them, then the money will follow.
Right.
The money is secondary to helping people.
Right. Very cool. Very cool. So, moving on from, actually, let's talk about that phone call. You said that it was like 5 minutes. A lot of our estate planners here say that phone call is something that they struggle with, and you're able to get it so that you can meet with people on that initial phone call. How long does that last, typically?
The phone call or the meeting?
The initial phone call, maybe someone schedules a call with you, or maybe they just cold called you, how long does that last?
5, maybe 7 minutes.
5 to 7 minutes, you guys. 5 to 7 minutes. I mean, it's going to be different for everybody, but this is what is working for Michael.
Sure. And I find the purpose of a phone call to be like, okay, I now know who you are. Let me tell you why we want to meet and talk about it. And no, I'm not going to be able to answer whatever estate planning questions you think you have in 5 to 7 minutes.
Right.
I mean, it's law and the practice of estate planning is not soundbite. It doesn't work very well. Right. You need to actually have conversations and explain and understand. Now, I had somebody who called me just the other day, and they asked me a question, and I'm like, so that's going to be like a 2 or 3 hour worth of conversation to try to answer that. And it would be practicing law, and I can't do that over the phone, and I'm not going to do it for free. Mm-hmm. So I just kind of explained to a person why it wasn't a great idea for me to try to answer something over the phone in a couple of minutes, and rather it would be better to meet where we could have a full discussion so that we're not, I'm not giving incomplete answers or answers that can be misunderstood. We don't want to be. And I'll tell someone that. I'm like, look, I can't just answer that question over the phone. We really need to sit down and talk about the different aspects of that, so let's do that.
So that's really good, and I'm sure we'll get a lot more questions as people get to watch this video. How do you do that in 5 to 7 minutes? And if you're okay with it for follow-up, we'll let you answer those questions in the chat.
We could. We could even do one in the future where you could be a pretend caller, and we could go through if you're a caller and how do I answer things.
Absolutely, yeah, we can certainly do that. Cool. All right, so just a couple more questions here.
Sure.
So since you got started, you've been in business for how long?
I've been on my own for right around 12 years.
12 years. So how has your process for actually executing and writing estate plans improved over the years? And are you part of any member organization that helped you with that?
So as far as the process, there's lots of different processes. I meet with somebody in an initial meeting, And then if there's a need for a follow-up meeting, I'll do a follow-up meeting. But a lot of times in the initial meeting, I can gather the information I need and get started on things, draft the documents, email them to you for review. And then via email or on the phone, we can talk about whatever changes they want to make. And then we get back together and sign stuff.
Right.
There are some attorneys who want to do an initial meeting, and then they'll do a second meeting that's a design meeting where they design everything, and then a third meeting to go over everything, and then a fourth meeting to get it signed. And that's perfectly fine. That is absolutely A-okay. It's just not my process.
Right. Yeah. So do you use any like software, or are you just like organizing things in folders on your desktop?
For the most part, I have templates of things and kind of the general outline of things that I've developed over time. I am a member of the Wealth Council, which is a drafting software. But since I've kind of got my own process that I developed, my paralegal is very familiar with working with the documents that I developed over the last 12 years.
Right.
So we kind of do that. But it's nice to have the backup of the Wealth Council every once in a while. It's like, oh, well, we need this kind of trust. I'm like, let me go see if I can find how that, kind of the sample and the example, be like, okay, now I can have that work.
Perfect.
Because, I don't think I know everything, but I have resources that allow me to find it.
Right, and something might update for your specific state, and Wealth Council, correct me if I'm wrong, they'll provide those updates. They'll be like the first to know, so they'll help you with that.
Sure. I have my own responsibilities.
Right. Yeah.
I try to keep track of things so that when they update, and every year when Colorado sends out these are the standard or these are the recommended forms, I get those and I'm like, okay, let me integrate that into what I've got so that it'll work.
So it's so it was really helpful, especially when you're getting started, to be part of an organization like Wealth Council for those documents, but you created your own?
I didn't join Wealth Council until probably 3-4 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Most everything I did, I figured out either on my own or I had an estate planning attorney who'd been in practice for 35 to 40 years.
Right.
Who kind of took me under his
Having
wing
a mentor.
And helped me, kind of helped mentor me and help me know which way I should be going.
That's awesome. Yeah, and that mentor was probably doing it long before Wealth Council even existed.
Right.
So they wouldn't even recommend it. Right.
My mentor literally wrote the book on elder law in Colorado, the handbook that we all use. He wrote it. So
wow, that's a pretty good mentor.
It was a good mentor to have.
Yeah. What was that guy's name?
His name is Wayne Stewart.
Wayne Stewart. Okay.
He's retired now, but still, he helped me get going because again, I don't necessarily think I know or do everything on my own, but I can use the resources available to build my own practice.
Nice. Very cool. All right, so here's a question that a lot of people look for answers to. What would you say to an attorney who's maybe just getting started with estate planning that you wish you'd known when you first got started?
I think I would wanted to. So the first couple of years that I was doing it, I was just trying to survive. I was trying to get things done, trying to get clients taken care of, and then like 4 years later, I'm like, I probably need some processes here that are predictable so I can follow. How am I going to save my notes? I had notes, they were in a filing cabinet. That's great. But how am I going to access those notes? How am I going to know, how am I going to have a process of, what stage are they at? Okay, we met with them the first time, we're drafting things, So kind of developing the processes, and there's plenty of, practice management software out there that may or may not work for you or may not be.
Help you move from one category to another,
right.
Especially when you're working with multiple clients.
Right, and they may or may not be helpful, they may or not be worth the money. I have my own process that I've developed, but as you're going through the beginning stages, start to figure out your processes. I actually, just a couple of years ago, I've been in practice for 12 years, and just 2 or 3 years ago, I got everything, the first 10 years worth of clients, all scanned and digitized. So now I have PDFs of everything.
Wow.
Because I probably should have been doing that from the get-go.
Yep.
Now I'm keeping up with it.
Yep.
But what it means is if I'm at a client appointment in South Denver and I get a call that says, oh, I need a copy of my power of attorney. Can you send that to me? I have a PDF that I can then find an internet connection and send it to them. Instead of being like, well, let me see if I can get back to my office. I'll be there in 2 days and maybe scan it and send it to you. But just kind kind of embracing the process. So you can't be like, well, I'm going to spend all my time on process, otherwise you won't make it as an estate planning attorney. But start to develop your processes so that they're kind of, whether they're automated or they're something that you just do every time, so that you've got all the things that you need.
You have a standard operating procedure where hey, at the end of this, I'm going to send them an email, and I'm going to have a physical copy that's indexed this way and a digital copy that's indexed a certain way on your computer. So that's really, really good.
Yep.
Awesome. So I'm going to clip this in real quick. Make sure our battery doesn't die here.
That would be good.
All right. So last question, and
Sure.
I didn't send you this one before, so.
Okay.
So I'm wondering if you could share with us a estate plan in particular that you wrote that was maybe unique or that stuck out in your mind as an estate plan that was just maybe you learned something from, or that maybe you'd want to offer to our estate planners here so that they don't make the same mistake.
So I had a trust that I wrote several years ago, and I got a call from the lady's brother, and she was in the hospital dying of COPD. So I met with the brother on an evening, and I wrote the trust, and called him, and he's like, oh, well, she's comatose, she hasn't woken up. So we're like, oh, well, this may all be for naught. And then he called me about 2 hours later. He says, oh, she's awake, can you come now? Mm-hmm. And it was before I was as busy as I am now. Mm-hmm. So I printed everything else and drove up to the hospital, and we got it signed, we got it witnessed, we got it notarized at about 11 in the morning, and she died about 5 o'clock that afternoon. And so, it was a revocable trust. There was nothing like super complex or crazy about it. Mm-hmm. But 9 months later, we got a phone call from someone who was challenging the document and said, oh, well, she didn't have the mental capacity to be doing this. Like, no, she was awake, she was mentally competent, we had witnesses. The guy who was challenging was actually in the room watching them do it. And he knew that she was capable, but he thought he would get more money if he challenged it.
Right. Grasping at straws, this guy.
Right. Well, but it's, there's always that to consider. Mm-hmm. So now if I ever find myself in that type of situation, I will have, if I'm like, hey, I need a doctor's note or something that says that this person is capable of making their own decisions. Because when she woke up, there wasn't a doctor who was immediately there to be like, oh, yes, she's perfectly capable of making her own decisions.
Right.
But if I'd waited an extra 10 to 15 minutes, we probably could have gotten a doctor in that says, oh, yep, she woke up. Right. Looks like she's able to understand what she's doing. Because I don't want to leave those type of questions of, is somebody mentally competent? If there is a question about it,
right,
don't leave it just up to me or the witnesses, but hey, let's get somebody who has a little bit more medical authority to come say something like
even
that.
Just having the witnesses say, the doctor walked in, said that she was okay, maybe a piece of paper would have even been even more so.
Well, that's why I'm like, yeah, I want some. I did one just a couple months ago, and it was a lady, she'd had a heart attack. And I said, well, what does her doctor say? Well, this and that. I'm like, okay, next time her doctor's in, have her write something out, just the doctor's note that says she's mentally competent to sign something.
Nice.
And so I keep that with that thing, so that so that if there's ever a question, it's not just me, but you have better
even if it's on a napkin, right?
No, usually letterhead's better than napkin, but still. Yep.
As long as it has that doctor's signature on it.
Right.
That's very good. Awesome. Very cool. Well, thanks for sharing that story. Really, really appreciate you coming on and talking with us. Is there any kind of last closing thoughts that you might want to share with the group?
Not really. Just kind of keep doing what you're doing. Find your way to do it. Find what works for you, because in the law, people always tell us, like, well, what's common? What does everybody do? What's what's the best way to do it? And like, well, there's not one single standard. You got to meet the reasonably prudent attorney standard, but find your own style, because you'll enjoy your practice of law a lot more. And I don't work with everybody because my style and my personality don't fit with everybody, and that's okay. You know, as a brand new attorney, like, I'm going to take every client that comes through the door. And I'm like, I don't know that we're going to work so well together. So, but you know, the more people you can work with, that you kind of have a similar outlook, the better off your practice is going to be, and the more enjoyable you're going to find it.
Nice. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
And thank you guys that were tuning in. And if you have other questions for Michael, how can they reach you?
Phone number is 720-394-6887. Or I am a member of this group, so if they were to send me a direct message or you know, just in the chat, you know, tag me and say, hey, Michael Bailey, I have a question for you, then I can, when I have some time to do that, I'll go in. You know, can't expect an immediate response. We all know that as estate planning attorneys, but you know, I can get back to you.
Nice. Awesome. All right. Thanks, guys.